Hey everyone, thank you and welcome to the Life by Design podcast by your host, myself, Alex Tam. And today we have a very special guest. This is our very first episode, and we have Jillian Flodstrom. And Julian, let me tell you about her. She is amazing. I was just on her podcast recently. To tell you a little bit more about our guest, Julian, number one, as a seven-figure entrepreneur, Julian has created and launched multiple businesses, five to be exact, in three different industries. Right? People have trouble launching one, she launched it in three. As the founder of FND Insurance and Financial Services, her current business is one of the elite few that was chosen by the whole state of Washington to be a preferred provider by the Washington Health Benefit Exchange and has been featured regularly in the media and social media. From being a forensic biologist to health insurance broker and entrepreneur to being an international business owner, Jillian is a specialist in helping her clients mitigate the feelings of being overwhelmed, chaos, and confusion when it comes to leading and growing her businesses and their businesses. She is the host of the Scale Your Small Business podcast and frequently does presentations for small business organizations, as well as being on the board of directors for a national nonprofit dedicated to raising funds to support people living with threatening health conditions. Now, with a relentless passion for efficiency, organization, strategic planning, Jillian has dedicated her time and her business to helping and inspiring small business owners to become more productive, more aligned, and more in control of their future. We are really excited to have Jillian here, so without further ado, Jillian. So, Jillian, tell me more about how you got started with the five amazing businesses. Tell me more.
Well, the first business really came from my work at the coroner's office. So I have a degree in forensic biology. I really saw a need about people that didn't have all their ducks in a row. They lost a loved one and then they were faced with, what do I do now? That really led me to transition into financial services, into the insurance world. And the other businesses that I created really came from a need from that existing business. So they've just kind of evolved, and as things have transitioned, they've just really came about.
Yeah, briefly tell us about the businesses that you do have. What are the different ones?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have FND Insurance and Financial Services. So that is my insurance brokerage firm. So I'm a registered rep, securities license, so I can take care of any of those financial planning needs that my clients might have. I also have residential and commercial real estate holdings. Real estate is my passion. That's what I do for fun. I'm not a licensed real estate agent, but I do love real estate. It's just so exciting. In fact, I'm actually here at one of my properties getting ready to have photos taken for it today. So it's kind of exciting to see like different aspects of your business, but working in conjunction at the same time. And then of course I have Scale Your Small Business, which is my coaching business where I share with business owners how I was able to scale my business up while having multiple businesses.
And I was recently on the podcast, and
Yes, you
you
were.
had some really like thought-invoking questions, for me, and I want to thank you for that. You know,
Absolutely.
have you always wanted to do what you are doing right now growing up? Did you envision that, hey, this is the life I've wanted, or was this something that you just fell into over time?
Well, I knew that I really always wanted to be an entrepreneur just because I come from an entrepreneurial family. So, my dad was a
Mm.
general contractor. My mom stayed home and took care of all of us. So, really having the freedom that I saw that my parents had, we had a summer home in Hawaii. And so, for them to be able to take the entire summer off when we were in school and be gone for 2 months, I was like, this is the ultimate freedom to have to be able to run your business from anywhere, to be able to spend that kind of time with your family. That core 2 months, there's so many incredible family memories that we have from that time. So, definitely something that I learned from a young age that wanted to have houses in multiple places. And also, too, because I live in Washington, so it gets kind of gray and dreary. I needed to be able to go to the sun. So,
Yeah, and now you're in Henderson.
yep, absolutely.
I just got back from that area. There's a lot of sun there right now.
There's a lot of very warm sun happening right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what would you say drives you and continues to drive you? I mean, their lifestyle drives you, right?
Hmm.
What else drives you in the morning? Because when you look at five businesses that you're running, there's so many moving hats. And a lot of people have trouble keeping one business, let alone five. What drives you to keep you going?
Well, it's definitely organization. It's more so even than that. It's just the systems that I have in place along with the folks that work for me. I cannot do what I do without them. They are an integral part of my companies. And so having the right people in place has made a huge difference. But bottom line, you've got to be organized. You've got to know what the goals are that you want to accomplish every single week, every single day. So that way you're not missing something or missing out on an opportunity as well.
Now, people, since you mentioned people and systems, that's like the biggest thing that businesses have problems with. It's I can't find the right people. I don't know how to train the right people. How did you early on knew that people was the most essential piece, or was that something you figured out along the way?
Well, they definitely became a part of my business right away. And I think that's important because there's so many business owners that hesitate to hire people until they're completely overwhelmed and overloaded.
Mm.
And then they just hire someone and give them a bunch of stuff and completely overwhelm them. And then the person's like, I gotta get the heck out of here. This is not what I was looking for. So I think you've got to start when you're not at that overwhelmed phase. You've got to start early. You've got to start making your list of what are the things that either you don't want to do or are not your area of genius, and start creating a job description, even though you don't have a person for that job description yet. I mean, that's what I did. And the first person I ever hired, her name was Ideal. That
Wow.
popped up in my interviews, and I was like, say what? Like, that's a
Yeah.
sign that she was the right person for me. And she was my first employee, and she was amazing. She helped me so much. And so it's definitely about organization. You've got to know the stuff that you don't want to do. I mean, for me, it was email. I was overwhelmed with the amount of emails. And even though I was really good at organizing them in different boxes and, getting through it every day, it was starting to become a slog. I was that person that you would meet at a convention that had like 18,000 emails on their iPhone because I was like, well, I don't want to get rid of anything. I don't, I want to make sure that it's all where I can get to it. So that was the first thing on my list was like, I need somebody to help me with email.
And then as you grew, when did you know that you needed more people? Did you wait till you were more overwhelmed, or was it your staff that was overwhelmed? How do people know when they need to hire more people?
I just started to see the pattern. So when we hired our first video editor, I started noticing that, especially if you're in this digital space, if your area of genius is not in editing videos or the social media image creation, things like that, which it wasn't for me. I love that stuff, but I am not good at it. And so I started to see this through line of all these things that we were starting to need. People, I would go on podcasts or speak and people would request certain things and I didn't have it. And so I started to notice that there was this pattern of all these things that people kept requesting or needed. And I would have to go out to Fiverr or Upwork and have someone do something right away. And I realized, why am I spending money doing this when I could have someone who works for me, who is always available, who can anticipate my needs of what I might need for all these digital things, media kits, all those things that people are requesting nowadays. I just was like, we've got to get somebody on the team that can handle all this just so I can move it over to them and I don't have to worry about it.
Now, right away, when you say Fiverr, that's online, getting a freelancer or virtual assistant. A lot of people who are starting out may not have the funds to go get someone that is in state, right? Paying them at least 20 to 30 an hour. Did you start off with someone in states or did you hire a virtual assistant?
So I had both. So I had someone that was local to me, but I also had a virtual assistant that was in the Philippines. And I think that is the most amazing way to go, especially if you're a business owner that maybe you're unsure of what you need. You know, you've got some stuff that you want to pass off, but you, at the same time, you know, you've got to make sure that you keep the lights on in your business. A virtual assistant is definitely something to look at. They're amazing. I mean, I have 3 right now and they help me run my business. I mean, they are the best people and I'm so thankful that I found them. But I have people here in the States and outside. I even have somebody in Canada too.
Oh, wow. In
Yeah.
Canada. That sounds virtual.
Yep. Definitely virtual.
That's awesome. Well, I heard the Canadian borders just opened up. So, back to
I think
traveling a
so.
little bit.
Yeah.
Now, going from business to family now, what does family life look like for you? What does home life look like?
Well, right now, my mother in law just moved in with us. She's getting to that age where she's transitioning from her very large home that she raised my husband and his 2 siblings in. She's transitioning to a much smaller house. And so, luckily, we have the space to accommodate her. And it's been exciting to have her in our home, learn more about my husband's heritage because he is Vietnamese and Chinese. And so, it's great to have the interactions with her. So we're excited that we were able to have the opportunity to have her as a guest in our home, but also kind of experience the home buying process through her eyes too. I think it's been great for my husband because you really, when you're in real estate all the time, you kind of forget what it's like to do it for the first time. And so really getting to see that through her eyes as we look for a house for a different stage of life is really exciting for all 3 of us.
Oh, that's awesome. My wife, by the way, I grew up in Hong Kong.
Oh,
So my wife is also Vietnamese Chinese. So I understand, there's traditions, the
yes.
family, like, hey, what do you look for? What not to look for? These T
Hmm.
intersections, all these little things,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, and we want her to be close to us too. And in
Yeah,
our real estate market, even though things, of course, are different with interest rates, it can be
right.
hard to find a place close to us. So that's what we're on the hunt for. We found one the other day that's only 7 minutes away, but she's like,
Oh,
I think we need to be closer. So it's
oh,
exciting to
like
see what's
walking
out
distance
there.
closer?
Yep.
There you go. So you can just,
Yeah.
yeah, come over. Hey, I mean, it's more convenient for you guys as well
Oh
in
my
the
gosh,
event that she
definitely.
needs anything,
Well, and she
right?
loves to walk. And so for us to be able to walk to her house or her to walk to our house would be huge.
That's awesome. Now,
Yeah.
does having 5 businesses, does your family ever say, "Boy, you're doing so much. Why don't you slow down?" I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs where their family tells them, "Gosh, you're just go 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 all the time." Does your family tell you that?
They did in the beginning. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's one thing that you have to be really careful of because it's very easy, especially when there's a family function that you don't necessarily want to attend, to be like, oh, gotta work. But I think that there's a couple different things that you can really focus on. I mean, definitely you've got to take time for your family. That is the most important thing that we have. And really, all those years at the coroner's office taught me that there is nothing more important than our personal relationships with each other. I think one thing too, though, that you have to be mindful of, especially when you're running a business, is that it can swallow you whole. And you
Hmm.
really need to be able to set those parameters and say, okay, what time am I going to start work? What time am I going to stop work? And if you're at a family function, put your phone down. Put it away, put it in your purse, in another bedroom, whatever you have to do, because whatever is happening, those calls, those fires, those issues will still be there. But I see a lot of times, especially like I went out to a restaurant the other night
Hmm.
and it was like every single family member at this table was on their phone. So they're like
Wow.
in proximity with each other, but
Right.
everybody's on their phone. And so it's like we just need to remember that when we're together, when we're face to face, that we put our phones face down so we're not distracted by what's happening. Because I know that my parents really were like, hey, you need to like slow down, like you're working too much is going on. But I think that was just because I was always on my phone. I was like, oh, I've always got to get this email. I've got to do this. So I got to get back to somebody. And the reality of it is now that we're this many years into business is that it's okay. Like that creation that we make of, I've got to get back to that person right away, it's very rare that that's what you really have to do. Of course, you want to be respectful and get back to someone, but usually it's not a minute and a half after they sent that email.
Right. I mean, a lot of times you're stressing yourself out when people
Yes.
do that. It's like that fight and flight, me being a doctor, it's seeing all that stress that people have. I said, you know what, let's take a few minutes. Why don't you do some diaphragm breathing, slow down? Like when I eat, I agree. I see people on their phones all the time, and I always, the moment I sit down at a table, my phone's on that do not disturb mode. Where I recently found out about that just a few months ago. One of my assistants were like, why don't you just turn on the do not disturb mode? That would relax you a little bit more, Dr. Tam. And I was like, oh, there's a moat like that? Show me. I
You
had
know,
no
the other
idea.
thing too
I
that
had no
is can
idea.
be super huge, which is
Yeah.
kind of like, huh? Like, why did I never think of that before? Is to make it so you don't get a notification every time you get an email. Like, you don't
Oh,
realize how many notifications you're getting
yeah.
until your phone's pinging for email, text messages. And if you're like me, multiple email addresses for each business. So it's
Right.
literally like dinging every 2 seconds. I was like, okay, we got to turn that off because it's super distracting. So,
Wow.
yeah, there's so many different things that you can do with your phone to just make it so much easier and less stressful on you.
See, that's for everyone who's listening. Those are some great tips from someone who's had the experience. I think that's what we need to do is don't try to reinvent the wheel. Find something that it's worked for other people. Try that first and try to instead of trying to think of something on your own. Right. So now,
Definitely.
now I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about so you have grown amazing businesses. You family are family oriented. Now let's talk about, say, later on legacy. What type of legacy and do you want to build for your name, your family? What do you do about that?
Well, we definitely want to build that generational wealth. We want to be able to do the gifting that we want to be able to do, that philanthropic, generosity that
Right,
we see people in our sphere giving to so many different organizations, or if there's a natural disaster, that they are giving to those organizations at a
right.
time that they need it most. And so our focus is really creating those organizations, nonprofits, things like that, where we can really maximize those gifts that we can give to people.
Wow, that is truly, you're like we call it a go-giver.
Oh, I love
Where
that.
yeah, we call it go-givers. It's people who are thinking about others first. Because I've always heard that when you are focused on making sure others get their needs, you will eventually get yours, right? What type of generational wealth are you investing in, or where are you putting your money to work for you?
Well, we're definitely heavily invested in real estate. We love that. I mean, it is both a passion for myself, but also the business that my husband is in. But we also, on the other side, because I'm on the investment side of things, I think it's good to not have all your eggs in one basket. As cheeseball as it sounds, it's so true. You want to make sure that you're diversified to make sure that if there is a change, that you don't feel it as much or it's not as stressful because you're not, 100% invested in Bitcoin and now it took a dive and there went all
Right.
your money. There's all these different aspects of investing that you can be involved in and just making sure that things are diversified so you don't feel those swings as much as you would.
I bet a lot of entrepreneurs that I've spoken with, and I'm sure that you have as well, when they start making money, now they're like, what do I do with it? Do you encounter that a lot?
Absolutely. And the thing that I tell them the most is to pay your debt off first.
Hmm.
That I think it's very hard to go all in on investing when you still have debt, but I think there's also a place for debt. So I don't think it's 100% get rid of everything. I think that there can be a gentle balance because debt is not always bad. You just have to make sure that you're leveraging it correctly.
Now, when you talk about debt, how do you know or how do you show people which debt to get rid of first? How do you choose?
Well, I would say definitely the high interest credit cards. for sure. So if I had a choice between like a HELOC or a credit card, definitely going to pay off that credit card first. But I think for a lot of people, it's even knowing how much interest are you even paying? Because some people get their statements, it's on auto pay, and they don't even know that their interest rate has been raised, especially
Right.
over these last couple weeks of everything that we've recently gone through. There's things that you need to be looking at all the time. Even looking at your bank accounts, I find a lot of people are really scared to look at where they're at because they think they're behind. Or look at all these other people that I'm comparing myself to. I should be farther ahead, but I'm not. And it's really about, don't think about that. We're all in different stages of our life with different life experiences. You are where you're supposed to be at the right time. And it's okay to start where you are. Don't beat yourself up about where you think that you should be. Just start where you are.
I think that's great advice, you know. Now, if as we are ending this, if you were to tell yourself, say 15 to 20 years ago, like an advice that you would give yourself when you are just first starting out, right? Think about the fears that you've had before, some of the things that you have overcome. What are three advice that you would give yourself back then?
I think definitely number one would be take a deep breath. Number two would be like, it's gonna work out. I mean, there's so many things that I think back now where I'm just like, oh my gosh, why did I work myself up so much over that? But it's
Yeah.
really true. We can create these giant monsters in our head and procrastinate for forever without realizing that it's really not that big of a deal. And I think too that there's so many things out on social media today, regular media, that tell us that we're supposed to hustle, we're supposed to do things faster, and you're behind and you got to catch up. And the reality is that that's just not true. You've got lots of time to do what you want to do, but don't hesitate. If there's something that you're passionate about and you love, like for me, insurance, I mean, it sounds kind of dorky to be like, I love insurance, but the amount of people that I've been able to help is so amazing. Like the gratitude that I have for those people to see them walk through these different stages of life has been amazing. And it's really brought me so much joy. And so don't hesitate to do something. Make a switch. If you know it's something that you're passionate about, you got to go for it.
Just go for it, huh?
Right.
Now, say if someone who is confused about what they want to do, and I know that you help small business owners, entrepreneurs with their journey as well, what's the best way for them to reach you? How would people reach out to you?
Definitely jump onto my website, which you can go to hijillian.com. There is a form on my website that you can fill out for a free discovery call. And we just chat about your business. What are you looking for? What do you need help with? And sometimes at the end of that call, we figure it out. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes you need a little bit more assistance, but that's what we're there for. Whatever stage you're in, I'm happy to help. Because like you mentioned, we as business owners, we've got to stick together. And we can do that by helping each other, even if it's just one quick phone call.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Well, Jillian, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I wish you have an amazing rest of your week.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.